deal with that. So with that being said, we've got a 60-foot, 24-row, 30-inch planter, so covered a lot of acres in a hurry. One advantage to that for us is we go slow with the planter. And that is, you hear slow with the planter and people talk about meters and needing to go slow for the meters. We're going slow because it's no-till. That is a disadvantage for no-till, whether however you want to look at it. It is rough. Our ground has character. So, our ground definitely has character. And so with that, you've got old residue, you've got freezing and thawing, and you got all these things going on, piles and old tracks and all this stuff going on. And that's so that I don't feel, for us, the problem, at least with this planter, is the speed for the meter. It'll meter at 7 miles an hour. But that's 7 miles an hour if you were on a dirt road smooth. It won't meter at 7 miles an hour when those units are bouncing like that and it starts knocking the seed out of plates and stuff. Okay, so if we had conventional till, field cultivator, smooth, 7 miles an hour, I'm confident this planter would do a picket fence kind of stand there. Okay, so we went to the 24-row planter specifically so we could slow it down and do a better job of placing that seed. So we run 5.1, 5.2 mile an hour tops, unless we're in a very special situation. So to locate that special situation, that gets to the next thing, which is, I said, starting at the front is in the cab. We use a 2020 monitor, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen and heard about. Not sure what it's going to be now. It's a Monsanto monitor. But I've heard they're going to stick with the heart of what the 2020 approach has been, and I think that's a good thing. For no-till and for people getting no-till planters set up right, that has been a godsend, a solution to a lot of our problems, and the ability to monitor what's going on with this planter as we're going across the field. As conditions change, we can look specifically at spacing, not just average populations. We can look at whether our air pressure settings are right. If we're getting too many skips, too many doubles, we can tweak that and get a balance between where that roughness is causing too much balance and knocking seeds out of plate. Just a lot of information available to us in the cab now that we never had before, that lets us know the kind of stand we're getting without spending an hour digging up a row trying to find every seed and see what was going on and then making an adjustment and then not checking it again until tomorrow because you're only going to spend so many hours digging up rows when you're supposed to be planting corn. So, so you get a lot of information really fast. They've taken that to the level now where on this planter you not only get the information, you can act on it. Okay, and that's where you come back to, and that's one of the reasons we felt like we could live more with the central fill, because of some of the control options we have. We actually have the ability to put air pressure pneumatically down on the row unit as well as up on the row unit depending on soil conditions. And that lets us, if it's wet, you're trying not to come back to sidewall, that kind of thing, you can actually lift the unit when, and since we're consistent now, with not having seed boxes that are going empty and full, and that's one of the advantages of central fill. Seed boxes aren't getting full and empty all the time, which helps with that consistency. So we have that ability to control, which has really worked out nice. You match that with the ability to control the air pressure on the actual seed disc, really get a nice consistent stand. So when you do all that, we have next thing back, we've got variable rate capability on the starter. The 28% that we're putting on. We do vary it a lot from field to field. We're playing with the idea of varying it within a field, although at the 12-gallon rate that we're at right now, it's more of a, we'll vary the next application event. We don't do a lot of varying here, but the hydraulic drive and the automatic, it's on automatic shutoffs just like the sprayer is. So when you come out the ends or you do point rows, those kind of things, you've got those automatic section controls. Which help you with minimizing your waste and overlap. So that gets us back to here. So While we're on that on and off theme, you have the same on and off in sets of 2 on the rows of corn. That is computer controlled also. When you come up to the end, it generally shuts off plus or minus about 1.5 inches of where would be ideal there. So we're not tied to the old lift switch or anything anymore where you get 6 foot that you're over planting, or 3 foot skip where you pull it up too soon or whatever. You can actually get the planter down to where it's planting right and then turn the seed on when you need to. Instead of, we used to get a lot of planter wasn't quite down, but you'd have to put it down and then it'd get right about out here, and to get it right coming out the end, you wouldn't pull it up to out here. And those areas don't yield well. Okay, they're double planted. It's not an ideal situation. They don't yield well. They fall down. They're hard to get through at harvest. And the seed is $250 a bag now. When we were doing that, it was $60. So we used to run 7 to 10% overage on our seed cost on what it should take versus what we actually planted. Right now, we order exactly what we need. As a rule, we're plus or minus 1% across 3,000 acres of corn on the seed. By the time you do the proper adjustment on the meters, you get the on and offs timed right, we're using the seed that we should, not wasting it, we're not wasting fertilizer, insecticide same way, so we're not wasting those inputs, putting them where we need them, getting the most out of it. Insecticide, when we do use it, and as I said, we do use it on all of our, where we have refuge rows that are separate. Now we're of course going to the refuge in the bag on quite a few acres now, is going to hopefully phase these things out. Unless we go back to a lot more conventional corn, which we always have some. But we do have electronic control on those, a lot better than the old meters and stuff. We calibrate them a couple times a year and keep that working real well. Got electronic shutoffs on that. When you get to the actual row unit, we've got, Barry was a little surprised to see we'd gone back to a coulter on the front. After years and years of talking about getting rid of coulters. And that really comes down a lot to, number one, a lot of our acres have been no-tilled long enough, I think. It's not the same situation that we were fighting. We've got that structure there. The coulter actually, we're not running it deep and it's not doing a lot of damage. The dirt comes apart better. It used to smear and push and just made a wall where that coulter hit. So I think it's working good there. I'm not a big fan of it, but we've had a lot of issues. We got a lot of rocks or stones around here. We've had opener issues, those kind of things. So the coulter is there to kind of loosen up the soil a little bit. We're not running it below the seed, real shallow. Just works good on the continuous corn, those kind of things. It's a trade-off again. Floating row cleaners out ahead of that with the air adjust. Big benefit for no-till, the air up and down. We first saw that 2 or 3 years ago and thought, well, that's just, if you're lazy and you don't want to get out and adjust them, then you can do it from the cab. But the reality is to be able to adjust them differently on the end rows, where you're going to be turning on it, take them up so you're not moving so much dirt, so you're not driving back and bouncing over the end rows, or as the soil conditions change from morning to afternoon and then back into evening, as the moisture comes up, being able to not get too far down into that. There is a lot of benefit to actually being able to adjust all 24 of those quickly and consistently. It works really well. So we're good there. Then we get back into kind of the standard white planter units, a John Deere planter units, a Kinsey planter unit. They have different things so they can charge you more for the parts, but they're all basically work the same way. The International, is really the only major brand that's going to work differently. And a standard disc, keeping the seed firmer, which I think everybody should be fairly used to at this point. Using the International gauge wheels, which give us a little bit of airspace. Where you've got the soil surface being flat across the tire, you're carrying the weight away from the row unit and letting the soil that does stick to the disc actually come up and fracture in that open space before it pushes it back down. Has worked really well for us, and that's an adaptation for no-till. That would be exactly the opposite of what you would want in a conventional tilled scenario, where you're trying to make a slot to get the seed in. What we're trying to do is fracture that wall. We've got a fairly firm soil already. So that's just one of those things where we're able to, with these kind of setups, specifically tailor to no-till. Dawn closing wheels, this was the first year for us, and on those, we're very happy this year in varying conditions. There's a lot of different kinds of closing wheels. When we go to the bean planter over there in the fertilizer building, you'll see all the different things we've tried. We usually take our spares and put them on the bean planter because I'm not seeing a lot of difference one way or another on the bean planter. But on the corn planter, these worked really well. They give a nice kind of crumbling action without being quite as aggressive as the spikes that you see sometimes, and those kind of things don't leave the air pockets down around the seed. Do a little better job of packing. Went to this fertilizer apparatus this year to put it on top because we had been a big proponent of the John Deere single disc out in front, 2x2 placement for getting the 28 down in the ground at the right distance. It also had a lot of issues because a lot of times you would get roots that only grew one direction away from that and couldn't cross this direction over through where you had done that compaction with that single disc and things when conditions weren't ideal. Like last year where we planted everything too wet. Got a lot of issues with compaction on the side that disc was on. These closing wheels leave kind of a furrow on either side of the seed. With some holes where those points have gone around. We saw more where we did test, where we had shut it off and things. For as dry as it was this spring, we saw a lot more actual indication in the plants, of yellowing and stuff where we turned it off that I didn't think we'd see. I wasn't sure whether it was going to do any good on top like that because I would have been told you got to put it in the ground. But I think with the holes and things, we were getting it to moisture at that time. And that was enough to at least hold enough that we could see the difference. So that being said, planter expert Barry, anything I missed there?
Not really, other than what Rodney spent, a lot of detail describing here. This is a soil health course, and equipment is heavy, and we've spent a lot of time on the biology of soil health. But a farmer also has to focus on the mechanical side and impacts that his machinery has on soil health. And so even to the shape of the rubber tire that is the gauge tire that sets the depth, he's managing for optimal soil health right around the seed slot from this planter because it's heavy. And you can negatively impact soil health at the very place that you absolutely don't want it to be negative, right next to the seed. So this planter is specifically designed to manage for high soil health around the seed slot. That's huge when you're going to be planting in a lot of different conditions, especially as you throw in cover crops into that mix. So that kind of investment, that knowledge, that trial and error that farmers are doing on their farms is so important for us to follow this and become familiar with the very concept and understanding of soil health, because we have to think about it, farmers have to think about it at every single operation that they do on the farm. If they're not constantly vigilant in managing for soil health in every operation, it can fall down on them, and it doesn't fix itself very fast. So that's, this thing looks very complicated, but for a reason, and it really gets down to we have to manage this thing for high soil health as well as any other part of the operation.